true to what you said on paper.
All right, welcome back to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. I'm your host, Larry Ellison. We're in studio today. Dr. Bradley is on a well-deserved vacation with the family, so he won't be in. He'll be back in a couple of weeks. We want to thank our sponsor, Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 781-342-0252. Guarantee Mortgage is located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston. Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectations. Like I said, we're happy this morning to have in studio with us with our guest. And if you want to give her a call, the number here is 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685 is the number. At-large City Councilor Erin Murphy is in studio with us this morning, joining us here at the Round Table. I want to say a hearty good morning to her. And not only she's a counselor, but she's an educator. So that's one of the things I think people who are, it's an honorable profession. Tough getting people into it these days, but it's very difficult. So welcome, Councilor Murphy. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. We have a limited time with her this morning, so we're going to get right into it. You know, Councilor, you have probably a bird's eye view of what's been going on in the city. One of the things we were talking about in our 7 o'clock hour is the situation down at Mass and Cass. That situation has gotten worse. It is almost the gateway when you come into the city. And I know the city council has limited powers. I think people don't understand some city councils around the state are more powerful. Boston, I know there were some changes
with the policy.
Is there anything that the council can do? I know you're an at-large council.
I am at large.
So
you're in my district.
You have the whole city.
I do. And it's something I've definitely been following and been a strong advocate for since 2014. I know Mass and Cass is usually very connected to when the bridge closed to Long Island, and a lot of the people and the services were moved to that area. And so that's been part of that conversation, but definitely have been down there. I go there a few times a week and really can say honestly that it is getting worse. It's not getting better. And we have to do something quickly, right? Because it's at a point now where our first responders are, being harmed. You already know that many of those down there, some are struggling, some are down there for illegal reasons. We know that crimes are happening down there. So for me, we have to really separate, help those who are ready and need help, but make sure that we're making that area safe. Because I recently filed one of the powers we do have. I filed a hearing order a couple weeks ago to give tax abatement, to give tax relief to a lot of the businesses down there who were just struggling. The McDonald's, all of them, all of those places down in the New Market bid area, they're spending millions of their own dollars on their own security, replacing windows, and they're really struggling to keep open. And I do think that we as a city need to step up and help the businesses too.
And I think what doesn't get enough attention is the public health crisis that it's causing down there. As some of our callers were saying, people are down there in there, they're using the bathroom in the public. So all of this is we do studies and we test the water for COVID, but I'm sure if you're testing the water coming from out of there in the sewage, that we're probably seeing a problem. And I think to compound that is what, because I think it ties in, is what we're seeing even in the South Bay Mall there with our young adolescents and the violence that is taking place over there. I've been over there and been on the receiving end recently as a law enforcement, being attacked by young people and just such anger. And this is, we've seen it in the schools. And I know you guys have put orders in to try to get metal detectors and things in the school. But that area down there right now is a magnet for all of the wrong reasons in there. And
it should be a thriving business location for all the people who live around, myself included. I used to always go to that Target or run into the Marshalls and Home Depot, but people are avoiding it now for all the wrong reasons. And you mentioned too, I was an educator, like a Boston public school teacher.
No, you always were.
I'm still an educator.
You're just not practicing right now, but thank you for that.
Proud mother of a BPS teacher now, so that was nice. I passed that off when I moved on to the council. But the school safety, and it carries over. If our children don't have great schools, that they're feeling that they're leaving with hope, right? I mean, you see it in law enforcement, and I think we definitely have to build those bonds back. I've gotten a lot of pushback in this idea that I think police belong in schools like, stormtroopers walking up and down,
Mm-hmm.
the last thing you want to do is set up shop in a school. But if needed, and you do want those relationships, and you want to make sure that the teachers, the principals, the students, the families know that you're there to support. In our community, policing is the best in the country, best in the world, I would argue. And
Right.
every time I see Nora or Jimmy Chin and, our community engagement, and they're at the schools that do welcome them in, I see happy kids, like having real conversations and building relationships with our first
Right.
responders, and that's important.
No, you're right. And to that point, I see, since there's kind of been this barrier from that happening, we've seen the results of that, where those relationships that used to be built aren't being built and unfostered. And we're seeing that because interacting with these kids, like we've been tasked with trying to go over to South Bay. For some reason, they thought we had a relationship with these kids, but like because we haven't been able to formulate that,
In the
because we
schools,
don't have access to them, when they knew us, that's helped that
Absolutely.
brother. But now
Absolutely.
we're just another stranger
Yeah,
to them
yeah.
when we do encounter them, and they just see us as law enforcement and not as someone who actually
Who wants
is-
to help?
Exactly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's another big issue, because I was telling earlier, this summer school session has been the busiest for us in law enforcement that I've seen in quite some time.
Scary.
And it's alarming
And it's
to
not
me.
being talked about.
It's not that we're going into the school year
Yeah.
with that type of aggression. What committees do you
Yep.
chair?
So I'm the chair of public health.
Okay.
Recovery, mental health, homelessness, but also veteran services.
Okay.
And the co-chair with Julia on
Yeah.
education.
Okay.
And as an educator, do a lot of work and advocate for a lot of families. And teachers trust me and reach out to me. So I'm trying to build that relationship with
Yeah.
the school, because a lot of times, unfortunately, city government ends up pushing back, I think, when you're trying to advocate. My job is to lift the voices
Right.
of the residents and
Right.
voice their concerns and try to help get things done for them.
So there was a lot of pushback recently when you and the other counselors, not of color, proposed having a safety plan and having metal detectors in the school.
Yeah.
They have metal detectors at City Hall, right?
Yes.
They have metal detectors when
Every
these
door you try to get in.
right, and they have armed police officers in City Hall, right? The mayor has a security detail, and I'm not saying that she shouldn't, but so I'm saying is that
Yeah.
we understand that safety is something that we need.
Yeah.
We're seeing an alarming number of weapons in the school, not just guns, but knives and tasers
Yeah.
that should not be in the school. It's a
Yeah.
disruptor of the education.
Right.
You know, as an educator, if you have to spend time on behavior,
Yeah. Any minute spent not on teaching, and if it's on safety,
right?
absolutely we should spend and do more investment in social emotional wellness, and that making sure all teachers are trained to make sure kids feel welcome and safe and part of a community. But that's not the same as being safe.
Yeah.
Weapons are a different level of unsafety in our schools, and we're seeing it.
Right.
And the data shows that it's real, and I know people don't want to talk about it, but it's real. And you know it on your side that it's happening. So if we just pretend it doesn't happen, we're going to keep losing teachers. We're going to keep losing families. I mean, we're losing thousands of families every year. And
Right.
the majority of the families we're losing are our black and brown families now.
Right.
I mean, I know you said earlier, majority of our students are black and brown, so we can argue, numbers can be funny, but more and more of our black and brown families are making choices, either able to move out of the city if they can, they're choosing Medco, or they're
Right.
going to our charter schools.
Right.
Our charter schools are busting at the seams because they're an option that's safe and doing
More-
the job of educating our
It's
kids.
a more
and that's what
structured
school's about.
environment,
Yeah.
which all of them should, right? It's not a lack of money. 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. You're listening at the round table with MAMLEO. In studio, at-large City Councilor Erin Murphy is our guest here. We thank her for coming in this morning. If you have any questions for her, give us a call. So Councilor, one of the big things that has been a driving issue as well is, the budget for the city this year is over $4 billion.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Right. And
The schools take up 40%. Yeah.
exactly.
Our schools take up
So
a
we're
lot.
spending on average of someone say around $31,000 per student. The student population has declined.
We're at the highest spending per pupil in the country now.
Wow.
Because we're increasing our budget every year, even though we're losing students every year.
And also, the state has been overseeing, looking at. They have some involvement. They
Yeah,
haven't
of course.
taken over
Yeah,
completely.
right.
So
They're watching closely, though, yes.
Right, it's a fair assumption. Has there, you coach here, has there been any improvements that we could talk about for that investment?
Not enough, right? When we see all of the women power that's put into our schools and the money that is spent, and kids can't wait. We can't wait a year, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years. I mean, generations we're losing every time another, group of high school kids aren't getting a quality education, another group of early childhood. I mean, there's definitely been strong investments and there's been wins. I'm not going to say that there haven't been, but I have to also be the adult in the room and willing to say, but we also, when over 90% of the students at Madison Park High are not reading on grade level.
Right, and
that matters, right?
It does.
When the majority of the students are administratively assigned because there's so many empty seats, we have more to do at Madison Park than just build a new building. We have to really change the structures there, and that's just one example. I'm not picking on Madison Park. No,
you're right. Because, but to that point, Madison Park has been, even prior to the state, was already in some form of receivership because it was underperforming. In most of the high schools that are not exams are pretty much in that same. Burke was in; they've come out of it. Brighton High, so you see this going on, because there's also been some flare up on the education piece, and I want to get this call, is that the moving of the O'Brien to West Roxbury High School,
I was against that.
And the other piece that people are upset about as well is that during the last election they voted for an elected school committee,
and it didn't happen,
and it hasn't happened. What's your take on whether we an elected or this hybrid? I mean, the people have spoken. I have a
strong opinion on that. Most people I talk to, and as a mom of my kids are young adults now, but as a mom of kids in BPS, as a teacher for all those years there, most people I talk to are not happy with the school system. And when there was a question on the ballot to make a statement on whether or not you're happy with the way things are going, I think it was more of a mandate on, we want something different because it's not working. Right. The only option that was given on that ballot question was, do you want to keep the elected school, or do you want to keep the appointed school committee or change it to an elected? Right. And so it overwhelmingly got a vote to change to an elected. I'm not convinced that that's the best choice. So I do think we need to kind of dig a little deeper. For me, I mean, I'm even willing to talk about just dismantling the entire school committee.
To that point, though, but I'm going to grab Boston is the only city that doesn't have an elected school committee. Right. I think that speaks volumes. Right. And we have probably some of the worst problems here, and then people feel like they're appointed by the mayor, that they work for the mayor and not
for the people, for the families.
Yeah, there's no.
I also think, though, that it's a buffer that people don't call the mayor out or the city councilors directly out when the schools are failing, because they can always say, well, that's the school committee, ask the superintendent. But I think if we had to answer like we do for Boston Police and other city departments directly, I think if the pressure was put back on the mayor and in the 5th floor of City Hall on both sides, that we would make more action would happen. All
right. Good morning, caller. You have a question for the call?
Good morning, Larry. How you doing?
Good. Good morning.
How you doing?
Good morning.
I'm good. I'm good. I got a question for Miss Murphy.
Okay.
How do you want to keep, not only the students safe, but how you going to keep the staff safe? Because staff assaults in the schools is on the rise. So my question is to you, how do you want to keep good teachers from leaving and going to other professions in life?
Thank you for that. I always make sure I include the entire community when I talk about school safety. Our kids, obviously, it is our number one job to keep our students safe, but we absolutely, as a city, and every principal needs the support to make sure that all of their staff feel safe, from the bus monitors to the cafeteria workers, custodians, classroom teachers, paras, everyone. And we need to have honest conversations about reporting. When something happens, I hear time and time again that they're discouraged or told not to report something. And we've seen, teachers you know, we know that parents and students have gone to the police directly, but teachers going to
Well, and
or
also-
being reprimanded
right.
if they do share something that's scary, that they're feeling not safe.
And they're put in a difficult situation because by policy they're not, but by law, but they're mandated reporters,
Absolutely.
and they're running into a problem for themselves because the law trumps the policy, and that's what protects them. But reality is that they know there'll be some backlash
right.
for doing what they're required to do by law, and
Right.
and so there needs to be a little bit more
And you
protection.
know,
for
with
that.
a law enforcement, emotions get in the way, right, when it's kids.
Right, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, we're hurting the children too if they're being allowed or others are able to see that we're just attacking teachers, right?
Right.
That can't happen.
I mean, I thought that there would be the catalyst when we had to shut down a K-8 school because of inappropriate sexual behavior, that would outrage us to the point where we have to.
Yeah, that just kind of died. No one really wanted to talk about the fact that kindergartners were being raped. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's shocking to me that those conversations, and
Well,
when you try
let's-
to bring it up, like
right.
people will push back and say,
Right.
well, you're racist. Or,
Right, right.
no, I care that kids are safe. I care that teachers absolutely are
Right.
safe.
But that's why it's important that people like myself who have fought that from my time as president of MAMLEO, as a law enforcement, when people are doing the right thing, you can't label them, you know, because I say the same thing and they don't call me, you know,
Right,
if
yeah.
you're speaking about injustices,
Right, right,
regardless, and that's what you're
Yeah.
tasked with. You're an at-large counselor. Cliff, thank you for the call. I want to grab this other call because we got limited time with the counselor, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, caller.
Good
Welcome
morning.
to the round table.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah,
You're the-
I have a question for
Yes.
the counselor.
Okay.
And my question is, it falls under Michelle's mile. Will she work with Team Michael Thomas to get his People's Academy up and running, to give him the resources and tangibles necessary that he can help tackle the problem with Michelle's mile, so that way we won't have a lot of crime going on in the city? Because last time I checked, when people are productive, they contribute to society and making sure that they have a better life for themselves, but other people are wild them. Huh?
Yeah.
No, thank you for that. And this morning I saw a Trades Not Triggered t-shirt. So I thought about T. Michael and visited him last week over at the convention center with his beautiful artwork. And yesterday was at at Wentworth College with a group of summer students who were working also with Youth Build, which, you know, we have to invest and not just talk about, but really invest in our workforce development. In many, I mean, in Boston, trades are such an amazing,
Right.
wonderful.
And to that point, Counselor, Madison Park is a vocational school. A lot of everyone there is going on college. Why wouldn't something like the People's Academy, for folks who don't know, it's a trade training program, to be implemented into
We're offering like community colleges, Roxbury Community, Bunker Hill, free June, community college tuition. We should also be investing in programs after high school, like the People's Academy and others, where it really gives people the trade, but also it's a network. To me, what I see, of course, the trade, the skill you have to learn, but that network and that group of people that you know are on your team now and supporting you and helping you through the process. We have a lot of things we offer in the city that aren't successful, and I find it's because there's no follow through.
Right, because if you look in Boston, there's cranes, there's construction going on.
Everywhere.
And these folks are not making minimum wage. They're
No.
making a living wage, and allowing them to be residents here financially,
And
right?
it's a safe, the safety, the union,
Exactly.
benefits, health insurance, all of that is added. It's not just a good hourly wage. So it's important to continue to advocate, which I'll continue to do for that.
I appreciate it.
Especially when, I'll just say one last thing on that, but when there's a program already with a history of success, I think we have to definitely
And he's
look
been
at
doing
those
this out
more
of his own pocket.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dick. I want to grab these other calls because, like I said, we only have limited time with the council this morning. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Oh, okay, is that me?
Yes, you. Get you, Jamal.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Peace. Good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning, counselor.
Good morning.
So I got two things for you. One is something that I've already sent to your office, and something that I just actually came up with recently. So, and I sent Larry a picture on your phone, if you wouldn't mind looking at that and perhaps showing it to the counselor or whatever. But in any event, so with all these new cannabis dispensaries, right?
Yep.
They now, the marijuana that they give out, much like potato chips, little bit of chips in there in a big old container, right?
Yeah.
And now there are marijuana containers that are popping up all over the place. I sent a picture of my own little collection.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And of marijuana containers. Now, here's what I propose. And this is like, I miss Matt O'Malley, you know, because he was the big environmental guy, right? But I propose that each dispensary in the city of Boston is required to keep a recycling bin in their lobby where one can return these things. Now, I don't know the legality. Now, if you could get a 5-cent redemption on them like you could soda cans, because a lot of these are very heavy glass as well. Some of them are just regular plastic, but some are very heavy glass. I don't know if there could be some sort of financial incentive, a 5-cent deposit or something, returning them, but at the bare minimum, each dispensary should have a recycling bin in there. Yes, people could recycle them on their own, but as you know, they don't. So anything to encourage that, I think that should be looked at. What do you think?
Like an incentive. So I've never seen them before. So, but it reminds me, like years ago when my kids were little, like the baby food jars, and you wondered, what are you going to do with all of these? Sometimes people just store them for no reason, or they just get thrown in the regular trash and not recycled. So I really think that's an interesting idea that I'll look into about the recycling of them at the dispensaries. If there's some way we could have, I know we are expanding our, Green New Deal environment. We now have the compost green trash pickup, so maybe have something for those glass jars, and maybe we could include other types of jars like that if it's a
the little green bins that people put like food in and leave on the sidewalk.
Yep, that get picked up.
Oh, you know what I call those?
What do you call
them? I call those rat feeders.
Yeah, they are if you don't put the top on.
Well, the rats around here will open that top up or chew through it.
I have rats near my house too. They're smart and strong, unfortunately.
Say that movie.
Well, these Blue Hill Avenue rats they gangster over here. So listen. And then the last point, which I've sent you about, and this is something that I really thought about. I used to work at City Council, and I think this will go a great way also to repairing some of this racial divisiveness that in many cases is unwarranted in my view. But the past councilors who had espoused some very, things that we now know today are not so good. Those being Jim Kelly and Dapper O'Neill. Jim Kelly, the bridge named after him in Southie, that's a more sticky wicket because Department of Transportation, that's a state-level thing. But the one thing that I believe is in the power of the city council and the mayor, and Council President Ed Flynn has been on this show and has already stated that he agrees with it, the Dapper O'Neill part of it. Can we get Room 801 to be denamed, call it something else, just call it a hearing room. But I think that we need to move past some of these historical figures like Dapper and O'Neill who were real racists, and not just racist, sexist, misogynist. They didn't like. I mean, there was nobody that they did like. So I think that we can move away from that. And I think particularly with some of the stuff you're going through, this would be a good time to do it. You and all the white councilors, we could all join together and sing in perfect harmony. What do you think?
Definitely think it's important that we do our homework and look back at history. Things you find things out oftentimes later, and when you do, you have to adjust and make changes if necessary. So it's definitely something I'm in favor of. If we find that some of these past rooms, in City Hall that we do have power over changing or around the city don't deserve the name. I think names on buildings and rooms are very important. I'm always proud to say, the Richard J. Murphy, named after my grandfather. He was a great person, great community leader, and I'm proud to see his name on it. But if I knew names were put on other buildings, and I think it's also important, and I've done it with my students in the past, but it's very important for us to learn about these buildings and these names that we often drive by and don't even think about.
Exactly.
Like, who's Ionella? I'm in the Ionella chamber on Wednesday making really big decisions for this city and these generations coming, and different names. Faneuil Hall, Ionella, Nubian Square, all of these things are important. So definitely thank you for that.
Thanks, Jamal. Appreciate it, because I know she's going to run.
Thank you. Have a great morning.
Okay, all right. You can call. So I know you had a few comments there, Pastor.
Yes, Patrick Wilson is saying, one, how are we investing in bridging the gap of 2 years of out of school for children in the region? How are we addressing the dirt bike and scooter mobs, the children attacking random people in public? He further goes on to say, and this was some comments that maybe that had to do with some other things that you said, but he said, how about setting a good example for our kids? Make I guess it was some conversation about in terms of harm reduction or whatever, and I think that's what he's referring to. He says, make, quote unquote, being the key word. If you can't make people wear masks, how can you make them not inject heroin or other things?
Good question.
Yeah.
The first one was the school.
Yes.
It breaks my heart. We definitely kept our students, I believe, in Boston longer, remote, and it's going to be generations. I mean, we're decades away, but we did get billions of dollars, right? The government sent money, and we have, separate than our opera funding, the school system has ESSER funds and still has hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on it. And on the council, I do take that very seriously, making sure that, one, we spend it in time because you lose it, but also that it is effectively directed to that loss.
Yeah.
We can't just, build new buildings or, put a new bathroom in. Like, those things are needed, but the school department, we said earlier, has such a big budget that when it comes to the loss, the learning loss for our students, and it's not just the little ones. What about those 11th, 12th graders? We maybe need to extend it to 20, 21, 22-year-olds also who left high school because they were at a time when maybe that really interfered with their future. So to make sure, it's like the People's Academy or other nonprofits out there that support after high school, if it's not a college path, how are we making sure that the kids on the other end? We talk a lot about the kindergarten end because now they're in first grade and they're not reading, or we have third graders who aren't on grade level. And that's fine because they'll be with us, right? And I get that we can kind of wrap our brain around how do we make sure they don't leave us at the end. But just checking a box that they graduated.
Right.
I will say there was a newspaper article with the past superintendent and principals of high schools with awards because they had the highest level of high school graduation. But it was during COVID when not every single, but many of the hurdles, many of the requirements to graduate high school were waived because of COVID.
Right.
So, of course, the numbers of high school graduates went up because we lowered the standards.
Right, and that doesn't help. Well, Council,
So
I know
they didn't graduate with the skills they need to be successful. So we can't just pat ourselves on the back for a newspaper. We have to make sure we follow through and look at the data.
Okay, I know you gave us a commitment for this, so I want to be respectful of your time, and I know the calls will. We'll take those calls after we get the council. But I wanted to give you a minute or two to just let folks know if there's anything you want to express out there, or how they can reach your council, your office and your campaign.
She said, I'm Erin Murphy, at-large city councilor. I'll be running for re-election this fall. There's 8 of us for at-large, so we do not have a primary, so we will not be on the ballot in September. But come November 7th, would really appreciate everyone to go to my website. If you don't already know me and follow me on social media, it's Erin for Boston. Also, on there or on the website, you can register for our newsletter. We send out a lot of press releases in our newsletter to keep people up to date on what we're doing, not just out in the communities, but at City Hall, the policies that we're pushing and the work we're doing there. My website is Erin for Boston, ERINFOR Boston .com. My website is erinforboston.com, but you can always email at erinforboston@gmail.com or call me at City Hall, 617-635-3115. You can find us anywhere. Myself, my team, we're out in the neighborhood, the community. We have a wonderful, busy weekend. We'll all be around.
Okay. No, I know Lisa Searcy is one of your greatest advocates out there. She's out there. I
think she's already been to 2 events this morning, so I'll be seeing her a little bit later.
Well, at-large City Councilor Erin Murphy, thank you for your time this morning. We definitely have to give you back, as you can clearly see there's an interest in what the council is doing, and I know the President Flynn was in here. So it's important to connect with folks, and I know you and I connect on a regular basis, and want to continue to do that. And thank you for the work that you do. Thank you, Council.
Thank you for all you do.
You're welcome. At-large City Councilor Erin Murphy, folks. We're going to take a quick break, and folks on the line, stand by. We're going to get to your calls in just a second. We'll take a break, and we'll be right back.
This is for the dreamers They say I am a dreamer, 'cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle. So if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog.
I wrote 300 songs in 1 year, Boogie will tell you I'm on it. I got unreleased songs for days, they don't want it. Eat any MC in the game, it ain't a challenge. If your music reflects who you are, then you's a coward. I can see through the lies you ain't living what you spitting. If your money's so long, why your dog's in prison? Why your baby mom's stripping, why your mom's still living in that same broken home that you used to sell piffin'. You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strap. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst. And the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer, 'cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle. So if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog.
I always dreamed I'd be on tour. Instead of laying dealers on the floor, sitting in the hole, knowing I was meant for more. Swear money's its own addiction. Back then I lacked the vision, so every time I went to sleep, it's like I woke back up in prison. To the brothers coming up, keep your nose in the books. Ignore the looks, so you can give back what we took. The 90s taught us that the government is really corrupt. Like the Matrix, choose the red pill and wake up. The feds raided all major cities from Boston to Watts.
All right, welcome back to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. I'm your host, Larry Ellison. In studio, my brother from another, Pastor Hobbs. And we want to thank our guest who's had another event, who was gracious enough to give us a little time this morning. At Lodge City Councilor Aaron Murphy. I know there's some calls in the line, so we're going to take those calls so we can clean up. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the Round Table. You have two calls. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the Round Table.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I got another the councilor left, but I wanted to suggest or ask, like, if they had thought of, like, a couple of ideas. Like, why don't they just try to do a ferry to the island instead of trying to get,
Try to do what?
And then secondly, it's like, if they're asking the teachers not to talk to the police officers, is that a violation of their First Amendment, right?
Well, see, this is where you get in. It's just like for me in law enforcement, they have policies about, like I can't talk to the media, or you have to go through. So that's not a violation if it's a school related. Then it's not some person. So that's how they try to quell down anyone speaking. But they are mandated by law, and that's why the law was put in place, so that things that are mandated to be reported to law enforcement don't have to be filtered through anyone. And so what they're trying, there's that level of fear of, do I keep my job by doing the right thing, by doing what I'm required to do by law? Because the fallout that they're getting is that their job is in the line anyways, because now when you find out they knew and they didn't report it, now they have a problem from not reporting it.
I don't know. I guess fundamentally, if your job is as a teacher to educate and protect the kids, like, wouldn't you like just figure that trumps?
No, you do, but also I can understand, and I'm not condoning it. The dilemma is they also have to protect having an income, right? And that's the pressure that they put on these folks, right? Because now, if I stand up and I report it, now my principal transfers me, or now I'm into, I'm getting all the worst assignments. There's a price to pay, and you just wonder which battle do you want to pick when there's not a lot of support from, unfortunately, parents and a lot of times our elected officials and the public in general to help you with your problem. So that's the dilemma that I see a lot of them, and they want to do the right thing, but I can understand, them being in a very difficult predicament. But stand by. Hold on. I'm going to grab this. Is there another call?
Sure.
Good morning, caller.
The music is playing in the background, just so you're aware of that.
Oh, the music is playing in the background. Okay. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the Roundtable.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing, Larry? This is David.
Hey, Dave. How are you?
Hey. Good. I appreciate you having Councilor Murphy on and her strong stance in terms of school safety.
Yeah.
And it's to me quite amazing to learn that the city budget that 40% of it is designated for public education, 33% of that goes to Boston Public Schools, and yet we still don't have safe schools.
No, and she, to her credit, she spoke to that, and I know she gets a lot of flack from speaking the truth, right? You have been an advocate with SOS Save Our Schools, which came about because of the unsafe schools that we're in. And to your point, Dave, we're seeing that now in the public arena, right? We're seeing that down at South Bay. We're seeing that, I think there were 3 teenagers that were arrested downtown the other day. And that's just the ones that arrested. That's just because they got arrested that it gets the attention. A lot of times nothing is done to them except they get to move on, but they cause a lot of harm in that. So this isn't just impacting the schools, which the only reason why now is because we've been on a hiatus. And I don't know if how much of the broadcast you were listening to, but I was telling someone working in the schools for the police department, this is probably the busiest summer on record of a continuing of the violence in the school and weapons and things of that nature being brought into the school. So it's alarming to me that if this is a continuing, what this school year could potentially look like.
No, absolutely. And I think a point that needs to be made, and hopefully people will be able to hear and then act upon, is that this is an election year for our city council. And so the power that each voter has is incredible if we use that. And we go to the ballot and elect city councilors who represent our interest in safe schools. Recent polling data suggests 75% of Boston Public School parents want metal detectors and school police back in schools. They are concerned about safe schools, and this is a way to make their voice heard. So on the parent side, get out and vote for the city councilors who represent your position on school safety.
Right.
For the taxpayer, every taxpayer in Boston, 40% of the money you pay taxes to this city is going to public schools. Are we getting what we're paying for?
Well,
we need
to
to
that
elect
point
the
as
city
well.
councilors.
Right.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry, Dave, but to that point, something that I just learned from the counselor, which she was saying that there's still a slush fund. There's hundreds of millions of dollars that is still there. This isn't including what's been allocated for this year. This is not a money problem. That's what I'm saying. This is not a money problem. It's not like, okay, we have to choose between metal detectors and books. We can have both. We just don't want people to realize, because with that comes the reality is that, yes, we have to deal with the reality that the schools are not safe. In some instances, they're not safe. I'm not saying, but they're not safe, right? And even our flagship schools are experiencing the problem. What is the reason that you want to take the O'Brien out of Roxbury? People are saying because it's not a safe environment, that if you move it to West Roxbury, you're more likely to get more people in there that don't look like the folks who are in it currently, right? So it's more attractive in a safe environment, right? Someone pointed out to me one time that I was driving along with them, and we were driving from now Nubian Square, Dudley, and we get to Washington Street and Mass Ave, and they said, "Did you notice the difference when we crossed over?" And I was like, "No, it's a little cleaner, a little brighter." They said, when we were driving all the way through, you saw the roll down grates and you saw everything barred up, and as soon as we crossed over, you could see through the windows, because mentally, and because I said to him that it looked clean, he says because these folks, they don't want the perception that this is not a safe neighborhood. They're willing to take a risk of the window, but anything that looks like roll out, I'm like, that's probably not safe. The reason why you have these metal grates and you got to look like a fortress, right? So they know if metal detectors are there. I was going to school there in Boston. There was metal detectors there every day because it was not safe, and we're in an environment where it is not safe.
Absolutely. Yeah. The other category of people, and you talked about it with Councilor Murphy, are teachers who are very frustrated within the system, but they don't have a capacity or voice to speak out. But they do when they go to vote.
Right.
And so all the teachers in Boston Public Schools who have a view about school safety that's not being represented by elected officials, they need to vote some new folks in there.
Right.
And so you can go to the ballot box. Nobody's going to see who you vote for.
Right.
And that can be a tremendous message that we can send this election season to people running for office, that we're going to hold you accountable for your positions around issues concerning public safety and school safety.
Right.
And so let's use that power.
But see, here's a problem, Dave, right? The parents are not invested. I want to get Rhodes' take on this as well. The parents are not invested as far as the voting, right, in capacity. Boston is that, and most of these elected officials bank on the fact that people are not keeping an eye on the ball. The other component is we have 8 people in the primary, so that means there will not be a primary for the at-large councilors in general. So the likelihood is that a lot of them who have not been doing their jobs will get reelected because they're the incumbent, right? So those other 4 people, because I think there's only one open seat, that's Council Flaherty, who's not running for the at-large. So you'll have one new face. But the likelihood is that the other 3 and I, the only one that I think that should be reelected right now, based on their work, is Councilor Murphy, who just left here. That's my personal opinion, right? But I'm saying is that the other folks, I haven't seen much work other than this theater that's been taking place at the council. And I was saying earlier to folks, when you have the Boston Globe calling the city council circus, a very liberal newspaper, nothing wrong with that, saying that they're identifying that this is dysfunctional, that says a lot.
So true.
So true. So I don't think, based on the numbers, unless there's some writing candidates, we're not going to see much of a shift. But even with that, even if we didn't, if people held these folks accountable, that would speak volumes. And I thought there would be certain milestones, Dave, that teachers and students being shot at schools and students being shot, and some of the things, a K-8 shut down because of inappropriate sexual behavior. Our little ones it hasn't moved the needle. It doesn't even get talked about.
Right. I think that's so true, and all the reason for us. I appreciate your broadcast that raises these issues.
Yeah.
And you uncover what before is hidden and not talked about. So I appreciate that. That's really important for the community and for the larger discourse that needs to take place in our communities and awareness that people need to have. So appreciate all that work.
No, and thank you for the work you do. Like I said, for starting up something that really wasn't impacting you personally or your family, but having the concern and the compassion and the love for people. Right, it's this is not a black and white issue, and I tell folks all the time, we don't want to, we kill the messenger, right? We don't want to hear, but there are like minds, and I'm happy and honored to work with people like yourself, because I know you're doing it for the right reason, not for a paycheck, not for notoriety. As a matter of fact, people like us, we shun that. We're not looking for that. We're not looking for the limelight, but we also know people who are in the limelight who get paid, who are charged with this, who claim they have solutions, and then when you say, well, put up or shut up, you're not immune from being brought to task when you're not doing your job. It's not an attack on you personally when you're saying, hey, you claim you had solutions for some of these problems, and the problems have only gotten worse.
So well said.
So we have to do something. But thank you, sir. Enjoy the rest of your day. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care.
Appreciate it. Bye.
So, Rhodes, you've heard what Dave has had to say. You've heard what Councilor Murphy has had to say. You've heard what I've had to say. How do we pivot out of this? It seems like a hopeless cause. Like I said, I don't think Mass and Cass is going to get better. The only thing that might discourage a little bit of that down there is the winter months, and even with that, folks are creatures of habit in our schools. If there's any indication for what I'm seeing, this is not going to be a good school year.
I'm no longer obviously a BTS or a Boston resident, but I'm very concerned. And what I will say is this: is that as you mentioned, there's the dysfunctionality of how the Globe mentioned it as like the city council is. The irony of it is this: that if you want to see how the city is represented, look at your city council, look at the leadership and everything that we have, and to me, it's funny how But
let me just jump in there where you're saying, because you're right. We advocated, we wanted more diversity, right? We wanted folks, right? And I think we've made that mistake too in law enforcement, right? We said, we want more diversity, but we weren't specific about who that looked like even in those packages. And I think that's where we have to be more intentional in that we want diversity, but we want the right people. We want you to be qualified to do the job. We don't just want you there for theater, right? And so that is where I think we need to step up our game and say, no, we don't want clowns down there. We don't want a clown show. We don't want our city council to be described as a Jerry Springer spinoff.
Well, that's just okay. I can't remember the councilor's name. The one that obviously revoked license.
Councilor Laura, Kendra Laura.
And I'm like, if they're not even taking an example to be like, listen, like you should not be. They as a body, because I know, like, you know, if it was some other issue, like I know the Me Too movement.
Well, let's just put it like this: I'm a city employee, right? If I were driving my personal car, or let alone a police car, right, and it comes out that I don't have a valid driver's license.
Not a good example.
Right.
You're breaking the laws. You've not done. Like it's an obvious thing where they should actually stand up and say, no, you should not be part of this body. They've not said anything.
Right.
You know,
right.
And so it's like if they're not even willing to clean up their own house. What do you think makes them?
Well, you lead by example. Stand by when to grab this call. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Larry, I had to call back.
Yes.
It's gonna. You're right. We don't know what the school year is going to be all about, and I hope and pray that it won't be violent as the last school year.
Cliff, I'll take it even further. As this summer school has been, the first day of summer school. In the Latin, a student was brutally beaten the first day, and his parent responded to it and was arrested. Right, rightfully so, because their behavior. But I understand the emotionally charged that they were the first day, and it has been a continuum of the school of this summer school this summer. This normally it's almost like it doesn't even come up on our radar. Summer school. It's like a moment for us in our unit to take an exhale and try to get ready for the upcoming school year. We haven't had a chance to catch our breath. Go ahead, Cliff. I'm sorry, but
that's the truth. You know what I'm saying? That is the truth. But,
and to add to that, and then I'm gonna let you. And I apologize. Is that we've had this now continue to spill over into the communities, right? So they're not just inflicting this in the building. They're at the malls, they're downtown crossing, they're all over the neighborhood with this violence.
That's crazy. I have friends that profession to go to some other professions because they're like, I can't take these kids no more. They're violent, they're upstart, they're even good teachers, and I'm saying good teachers that have been there for so many years are up and packing and leaving.
Right.
Like, what is going on?
And it's in my profession, right? We're short between 350 and 400 officers, and people are leaving in droves, right? People like myself are making my way to the exit. I could stay another 7 years. It's not going to happen. It's not even months. It's not going to happen. And no one's irreplaceable. But you're losing people in a lot of instances who actually care, who stayed as long as they do, not because of the check you get paid, but it's because they try to make a difference. But that's not what's wanted. That's not what they want. They could care less about that. And the way you're being treated these days is a prime example of that. You know, they're not looking for solutions. They think anyone under the 40 has all the solutions. Okay. Good luck. So Cliff Rhodes, the mayor calls you guys in. These are my major problems: mass incarceration, the schools, the violence in the city. I'll start with you, Cliff. What are your suggestions to Mayor Wu?
Listen to the people.
The people have spoken, but see, this is that's a great point. So, but she doesn't have to listen to the people because there's no price to pay if she doesn't.
Well, if there's no price to pay, well then next election year I ain't voting for you. Plain and simple.
Okay. But see, they already have a constituent that votes for them that's safe and is not being impacted by this, so they don't see this as their problem. So they've got enough to get them over the hurdle. It's the folks who are impacted by it that don't come together in the numbers that need to be to get them out.
But let me say this. We as a community has to take accountable for ourselves and stop making these elected officials, help us. We need to help ourselves first before we could do do anything else. But if we help ourselves first, then everything will fall into place.
But Cliff, when's the last time a mayor or a city councilor, other than I think Councilor Yancey, right? But when's the last time you seen any incumbent that didn't not run for office not be reelected?
I can't remember that far back. But right.
That says more about us.
Well, to save my life.
Right? Rhodes, so again, the same question to you. Mayor Wu called you in. I've got this problem with mass and cast. I've got this problem in the schools. Housing is an issue. What are your suggestions to her?
Cliff mentioned listen to the people that are.
I'm not listening to you people. What do you got? I'm not listening to you.
Well, like I said, listen to the people that are on the ground that actually have experience.
I'm not listening to them.
With the issue. You're not listening to us?
No, I'm not listening because there's no price to pay. So what do you? So for giggles for you, I'm gonna just entertain what you're saying. Give me some suggestions on how I fix these problems.
All right. So again,
I'm your mayor. Tell me, help me out.
Mayor, like here it is. Like if they're not going to let you build the bridge for now, like maybe try to figure a way to contract a ferry to go to the island. And
y'all keep talking about this bridge. I got a bridge I'm gonna sell you. Okay, it's about as much as you're gonna get with that bridge. Right?
And so as far as like the O'Brien, like you got the Madison High School right there, refurbish that instead of like trying to move it. Like that whole building, that whole block. Like what are you planning on doing with that block?
It's called Smoke and Mirrors.
That used to be like the flagship of vocational education.
Yeah, and now it's the Titanic, not the flagship. Right.
I mean, I would be focused on the resources that we do have, and like you said, the fact that the behavior of the fact that the people that are the incumbent or the people that work there have tenure there are leaving, and you're not being able to retain experienced, good quality people. And they're just leaving in droves. That should speak, volumes.
Right.
Like the fact that you're not retaining people.
But see, all these elected officials, other than the ones that make career politicians, have a shelf life, right? And they to move on to something bigger and better, right? The only one that was here forever for life, who wanted to be mayor for life, was Mayor Menino. Every other mayor, it's been a stepping stone. I don't blame them for that. I mean, who wants to do this for their whole life? It's a burnout, right? So everyone comes in with the promise that they can do better than their predecessor, and we end up with the same result because, again, there is no accountability from the voters that vote people out. People complain about things not being better, and as the council said, as others have said, they have an opportunity at the ballot box. We have an election in the fall. There's only 8 people on the ballot for the at-large council. If people are claiming that there's not a good job, and the other ones may be running with 1 or 2 challengers, a couple of those are open seats, so there's more people there because they see an opportunity. But if they were running for re-election, the likelihood that they would be re-elected, like y'all alluded to, Kendra Lara.
Let's do it this way. If that Councilor Lara gets reelected, then I'm going to know that it's voter apathy. They just don't. They're just like incumbent.
If you're a gambler, I would put odds on the likelihood that she's going to play the victim card. She's a victim of the system, and where people are out to get her.
It's like Trump, right?
Yes, you're going to be.
She's using the same playbook.
Yeah,
she's using the same playbook.
That's right. They're only picking on me because I'm a black female and I've challenged the system and system. Oh no, but the laws don't apply. The laws don't apply to her. The laws don't apply to her. You need a driver's license. You know who I am. You drive downtown. See, she can park her car in the underground at City Hall, right? So the meter maid's not checking to see if her registration is not intact or her inspection sticker or expired driver's license. No, I go to work. You know
what?
They check my license
to make sure all the city councils their cars are registered.
Right, but they have that independent. Right, you should be able to. That should be known before you are able to pull in on city property. Right, I go to work. They check.
Dude, what if she got in an accident at City Hall? Like now, the city would be sued because she didn't have insurance.
It would be more embarrassing, but it is. Gentlemen, we've got 2 minutes. I'm going to give you one. Give each of you one to make your pitch for folks out there to get them involved. How do you do that? Start with you, Rhodes.
People, if you don't speak up, if the victim is the person you don't get your voice heard, it's your fault. As a victim, you can't expect the oppressor, you can't expect the people that are causing the harm to all of a sudden change their mind. You have to speak up. You have to advocate for yourself. Like, I hate to say it, but if you don't scream, the rapists ain't going to get off.
Well, say the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right?
Yeah.
And Cliff?
Get up, vote, and make yourself hold yourself accountable for everything that you do in this life. If you don't hold yourself accountable, how can you hold others accountable for?
Yeah.
Look at yourself in the mirror and say, why am I sick and tired of being sick and tired? And get out there and vote.
Yeah.
And make our community stronger.
Well, I always say you get the government you deserve, and that's what's what's happening now, folks. Gentlemen, thank you so much, folks. You've been listening to the Roundtable with MAMLEO. We've got to take our break. Folks, be safe out there. Next weekend is Carnival. Unfortunately, that usually is not a good sign for the community. It should be an enjoyable time, but we know that is not always the case. You've been listening to the Roundtable with MAMLEO. We're going to take our break, and we'll be right back.
Out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm
Larry,
motivated by the artists coming out in my midst, and the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer, 'cause I still believe that anything is possible. Work hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle. So if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always